Ready? Play.
Hello and welcome to WTA Weekly. You've just seen John's filming of the match point from the Madrid final, which was an enjoyable final, I would say. Obviously covered that with Ashley and Isabel live. But yeah, let's introduce the games. This is James. This is Tennis Ranter. James, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Nick?
I'm doing very well. I'm probably maybe not as happy as you are, given your clear allegiance to in the Formula One that you are showing off right now.
I just want to say that although I'm wearing their shirts, I'm not really one of their fans. It's one of those things where you get like a lot of people in like football who like getting different football kits from like around the world. I'm mainly a Mercedes guy, but a few years ago, the F1 store had a sale on, and this was very much on offer. And I was like, okay, I'll grab one. I've always wanted to have one because they look kind of neat. Bought one and they're really, really comfy, unbelievably comfy. I can see why F1 teams always wear them all the time. It's, you can walk around the house and feel completely at ease. But yeah, I'm a Mercedes guy mainly and a Lewis Hamilton guy.
Okay, right. I mean, just one last point on the F1. I mean, yeah, Federer and the Williams sisters at the Miami Grand Prix. I think there is quite a bit of F1 and tennis crossover, probably because they're quite individual sports. Emma Raducanu, obviously well known as being a Mercedes fan, Lewis Hamilton fan. And in fact, at one point was considering go-karting and or karting and going into motor racing as a potential sporting avenue, but fortunately for all of us, she chose tennis.
Interestingly, with when it comes to that analogy of both things working together, of course, the F1 track this weekend in Miami is the exact same area where the tennis took place in the Miami Masters a couple of weeks ago. And they use the actual Miami stadium, like they have the players in the back, that makeshift weird smaller stadium in a big stadium. It's almost like a big fish, little fish cardboard box or whatever. When it comes to, they use the same area to put the team like buildings and temporary things and whatnot. And there's a good photo of the Williams sisters with Federer.
Yep, and I remember actually, I think a lot of the Miami coverage, they were talking about the F1 a lot coming there. I think they would, like, once they were setting down the tennis, it was pretty much going into, right, now we've got to build the track.
I mean, it leads into a lot of what a lot of places, a lot of places almost having like tennis or like sporting quarters. And this is clearly something that Miami are building up in terms of around the Hard Rock Stadium for the American football, for the tennis, for the F1, whatever else they can work together and sort of follow that model of having that as a sporting quarter of Miami.
Indeed. Shame that, like, I think the only slam equivalent is Melbourne. Probably biggest because it's got the two, probably for a while it had the opening to both tennis and Formula One. But we're not here to talk Formula One, we're here to talk tennis. Although I will say that, like, your allegiances, you're clearly going for the winning team far more than me, who picked McLaren about 15 years ago and have stuck with them despite everything.
I will say I mainly followed Lewis, so I'm a Mercedes guy at the moment because of Lewis, and I followed it as soon as he came onto the scene back in 2007. I saw like a report on like ITV News that he came third in the Australian Grand Prix, and I was like, hang on a minute, somebody other than Schumacher's winning races, or at least getting good in races. I've got to have a look at this guy. And then I watched the next race, and then for years afterwards, I've been, following Hamilton all the way through for the really low points back in like the early 2010s to the high points of winning pretty much every single year up until the last couple of years ago. And then, of course, the situation where the F1 decided to steal the 8th title away from Lewis by not following their own rules. So, yay.
Yeah, never. Let's face it, no sporting governing body is perfect. We might get talking about Madrid organisers today. So, James, did you see the Madrid Open final, either live or on catch up?
I did watch it live, and it was a cracker. It was an absolute. That's the best, sort of, to shorten it up. It was a cracker. You had two of, what we would probably say are the two best. I say even clay courters. I know Sabalenka's quite good across all three surfaces, but certainly two of the best clay courters on the WTA scene at the moment, absolutely battling at it, hammering tongs. It was a repeat of the final that happened 2 weeks prior in Stuttgart, and Sabalenka was able to use the altitude, able to use the speed of the courts to her advantage, and actually to flip the result from 2 weeks ago, and actually pick up a second title in Madrid.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I have to agree. Definitely cracker. There's a little bit of recency bias here. I am actually tempted to say I think it's been the best match of the year in the WTA side. I think for me, I thought it was more exciting and better quality and better quality throughout. That to hold my attention compared to the Australian Open final, which is probably the only other real contender.
Oh, that's an argument. I really like the Australian Open final. It was I found that enthralling throughout, but I could see with this one because one of the good things about what makes great matches is when you have two like chalk and cheese characters in terms of their game styles going up against each other and seeing how they play out. That's what we have here, where Swiatek, very much more of a mover around the court, can really play. We can really have a lot of cannon in a shot. And I say cannon not necessarily of how hard they can hit it, but in terms of where they place the ball on the court in multiple times during a match. Whereas the Australian Open final, it was brilliant, but it was basically a case of two people that have a similar game style, just destroying tennis balls left, right, and centre.
Yeah, so it depends on what you prefer. It depends on what you prefer. I think there's the only two that you would the kind of main categories anyway. Some people might also say the Indian Wells final.
First set, yeah. Second set fell away. I watched it. I really enjoyed it, but I would, and I would say Rybakina played an absolutely brilliant level of tennis, but I wouldn't say it was as good as this one or the Australian Open final.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the fact it went to a decider. I think this one also, the Madrid final, having those mega momentum swings, just without necessarily the other player dropping off the cliff. It was due to the a player raising their level and changing the game. That decided those momentum shifts. And I think for me, that is one of the key things that held my attention throughout. Whereas I kind of felt like the Australian Open final, once Sabalenka got a hold of it, it looked like it was going to be a bit of a challenge to get her to let go of it. But this is just for me. I'm not saying it's all completely subjective. But I think we can both agree that that final, the Australian Open final, the Indian Wells final, were all thoroughly enjoyable matches. And
the Miami final to me was also quite enjoyable. Mainly, it may be because of the emotions around one of the players who was actually playing, and the fact that from where she's been to where she has been now, and the issues that she's had to face, to be able to then bring that level when we talk about Kvitova, and to be able to get the win. I felt she played some outstanding tennis in that final against Rybakina. But yeah, I could certainly say that agree partly with what you said already there.
Epic first set tiebreak again, and definitely great result for Kvitova given the situation she's in now, where she's now pulling out injured from Rome. It's not ideal.
I think Kvitova's now probably, she is getting to an age where she has to prioritise which tournaments work well for her, and the grass is her key, is one of her key sort of competitive advantages. Really, she's fantastic on the surface. I say that as somebody who was able to watch her win Eastbourne last year when I was actually there. But so I think it's a smart move for Kvitova to almost keep out of the clay season as much as possible to actually get herself in a good window to try and have a real crack at the at Wimbledon, because it could promise again to be a wide open tournament for Wimbledon this year. Or at least the ability to have a very deep run is very much there.
Yeah. Well, we've got to get through Roland Garros before we get to Wimbledon. But
of course,
I know it's always very exciting for grass to come round, though.
To say classic breaks, we want the grass court season to come as soon as possible.
Yeah. Okay. Speed the court up. What are you doing? But I would say the fact we are talking about having 2 absolute epic finals so far this season. We've had 1v2 the last 2 tournaments where the WTA has had a tournament. We've had 2 Masters 1000 finals in North America where they were super competitive first sets and still a lot of drama throughout despite being straight sets. Does this I can't remember a season where the last WTA season we've had where we've talked about great final after great final in the same way as we've had maybe on the ATP tour for a few years. So I'm really excited about the state of play in WTA tennis that this has shown and the sporting spectacle that it's now producing, as Swiatek versus Sabalenka showed. I don't know if that's something you would agree with.
Yeah, I think stability has helped with that. I know now people are, we've had almost like the chaos that was the last couple of years where it seemed like there'd be one random player versus another random player in the final of a massive tournament every single week. And we've only really, Swiatek on last year, but before that, Ash Barty the year after, that would provide some form of stability, or at least a familiar face running throughout those tournaments. But like you say, the fact that we've got these 3 players, or maybe not Rybakina on the clay, but certainly when it comes to Sabalenka and Swiatek going deep, constantly going deep, getting to those finals, having those rivalries, being able to ascertain how their opponent plays on the surface. What we would have from Stuttgart was that Swiatek was able to get the better of Sabalenka. Sabalenka was able to learn from that, being able to see how Swiatek was playing on certain shots and certain patterns, adapt those patterns into her own game, bring it into this match, and then get that win. And then seeing those rivals sort of get themselves better after each match. And we can fully expect, we'll probably maybe looking at, I know this isn't a preview show, but a similar sort of final in Rome where, I would not be surprised if these 2 played each other in the final in Rome. And sort of like Swiatek learning from this match, and then being able to take all the things she learned to actually, be better and beat Sabalenka, and, back and forth we go.
Yeah, I certainly think that these 2. I'm expecting another final between these 2 in Rome. Rome is very likely. RG is very possible. Could see them clashing at the US Open. Definitely at some point during the North American swing. I would not be surprised if these 2 keep running into each other for the rest of the year. And I'd be up for that, so long as the conditions didn't favor one over the other. And I think one of the reasons why this match was so great was both players could be there were aspects of the conditions that favored the players. So it was clay, so Swiatek was always going to be really comfortable on it, but the altitude gave Sabalenka a bit more pop on her shots compared to other clay courts. That for me, definitely going into the match, I felt like it was too close to call, because it kind of they had big strengths and not a lot of weaknesses to not a lot of drawbacks between them, so they could kind of go at it.
I would certainly say that when it comes to the altitude being a key factor here, when it comes to the speed of the ball and the pace of the ball off the ground, but this is certainly, this was certainly something it was important for almost Sabalenka to win, to be able to at least stake her claim in the ground. This is her backyard almost, and if she can't win here against Swiatek, where else can what hope do we have in any of the other tournaments for her to be able to beat Swiatek? So for her to get this statement win here where it's her backyard, it's where she's most comfortable. It then means that we have that competitive edge added to this rivalry going into Rome, which is going to be more seen as sort of Swiatek's back garden, given the fact she's won this 2 times, and seeing what Sabalenka can bring to that final if that takes place.
Yeah, I definitely think if this was a final that happens in Rome, Swiatek would have the edge, similar in Roland Garros. I mean, we'll look ahead to Rome in a bit, maybe looking at these two specifically. I mean, it's interesting. I think we've been talking just on Sabalenka and this title. I think you seem to be pretty confident that she's a contender on slower, more traditional clay as well then.
Yeah, I mean, the way in which we look at Stuttgart, and when we look at Stuttgart and the fact that she was able to see off a lot of very good players along there, and that was quite a slow clay court surface there. I mean, also when it comes to variations, it's the women's game, there isn't as much variation in terms of when it comes to different surfaces. So and the advantages that you have on the surfaces. So in the men's game, you have a lot where one player may be very good on clay, but then may be terrible on the hard courts and the grass courts. In the women's game, you notice more that a lot of the top players, they don't the weaknesses on different surfaces are slightly minimal unless you get to some of them when it comes to grass, and that's mainly because of not being able to play on it that much. But given the fact that Sabalenka's got to the final here twice, being on the clay surface, and the fact that she's always had good performances or good showings at Stuttgart, to me suggests that she is very versatile and solid on the clay, along with also the grass and the hard courts as well. She is the optimum all court player. Yeah,
I would say so. I think the thing that's not convincing me, and I wait to be convinced on, is the stat that she's never got past the 3rd round of the French Open.
Mm-hmm.
And there has to be a reason for it. Now, I believe her game is better now. She's clearly made improvements. I think she will break that duck this year. But I definitely think that the slower conditions do not favor her in that, particularly in the Swiatek matchup.
I mean, I know for Roland Garros, and I remember last year she went out to Camilla Giorgi, and I think he's in the 2nd or the 3rd round.
She's been 3rd round the last 3 years.
But was better. I think a lot. She wasn't in a great headspace around about that time. This time last year, especially with the Belarusian ban from Wimbledon that had just only been recently announced at the same time. But and Georgie's one of those players that on a day she's able to find it and hit the line. She's almost unplayable.
What happened to her in 2021? Because I remember having similar conversations about Sabalenka in 21 after she won that Madrid title, beating Barty in the final. And back then, Barty was the form player on clay. Barty and Swiatek, but Barty had just beaten Swiatek in Madrid.
I mean, we know when it comes to Sabalenka that up until quite recently, when we think about the Australian Open, or at least a couple of other tournaments where. Or the Grand Slams, there was always that big thing of, you've not got past the semi-final. Can you get past the semi-final? And that kind of went into Roland Garros, where people started to ask similar sort of questions, and that would have played in the head in 2021.
Yeah, just having a looking up 2021 to see what happened. What was she was a 3rd seed, so she was in the bottom half of the draw. There we go. Oh, she lost to the eventual finalist, Pavlyuchenkova.
There you go.
So it wasn't bad.
No.
So definitely in the mix. I'm just I need to see. I'm interested to see how she does in Rome. She is a semi-finalist in Rome from last year. That is a point in her favor.
Which backs up why I think she's an all court player. Any surface, she has a very high level on.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I think she's got a very high level. I was just thinking that other play, she'll play well on any surface. It's a matchup thing for me more than necessarily her own level.
Agree.
Okay, moving on to the runner-up, Swiatek. How big of a setback is this loss, if at all? If it is a setback?
I think on the one hand, you could say it's a setback by the fact that she's not. She's never lost a WTA 1000 final, and this is the first WTA 1000 final that she's. I'm wrong, aren't I, Nick?
Yeah, no, it's on clay. She has already lost the 1000 final. That was to Krejcikova earlier this year.
I mean 1000.
Yeah, no, that was a 1000.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's because they keep switching.
I don't know.
Dubai this year.
I know they do it for whatever commercial reasons, but stick to a schedule. Sorry about that.
I have a habit of correcting my guests on the show. Renee Stubbs will confirm this.
Well, you can correct Renee Stubbs. I'm in no hope here, am I? So when it comes to a clay, in which is maybe that point completely gets rejected. She's now used to losing on finals, so actually that plays more into her favour. Where she lost that final in Dubai, and now she's lost this final here in Madrid. So on one hand, it could be a setback by the fact of these are two very big tournaments. The two other tournaments that she's won this year have been only two 500 events in Doha and Stuttgart. The 500s, they were quite tough draws, but they were of a lower level. The fact that she's now lost two 1000 finals on a row, that could be seen as a setback. And most players, it could start to provide a little bit of baggage where actually, when it comes to the big moments, the people that she's playing against, she's no longer sort of swatting away, which she was doing in a lot of the finals. I mean, I think I remember the most vivid one being the Rome final from last year with Ons Jabeur, where it kind of felt like she was just being a bit kind in the second set by dropping a couple of games just to extend it for a little bit for the fans in the stadium. But I don't think, given the mental strength that Swiatek had, I mean, she went through the grass court season and was able to, compose herself quite well. And she had a bit of a bad spell going to her home tournament in Warsaw, losing out to Garcia in the quarters there, but then came back and was able to win the US Open by playing at least a minimum of a 7 or 8 out of 10 game throughout the entirety of the tournament, and that worked quite well. I generally, given the fact that we're now going, she was able to win what you could describe as a comfort tournament. So a comfort tournament was Stuttgart. Madrid, she never played last year, and she hasn't got much of a background when it comes to Madrid. So she will just basically take as far as she can in this tournament. But certainly, I think the big test and the major test will be Rome in a couple of days' time when that kicks off, because that is seen as Swiatek's competition. And if she doesn't win this competition, and if she doesn't win the competition, serious questions will get raised of actually, is she going to be the favourite, or can she actually repeat holding her Roland Garros title?
Yeah. I completely agree. I think, Rome will be the place where the questions will come. I am encouraged by the fact that Swiatek's actually been really, really positive despite the loss. Like, she's taken it pretty well. And I think she knows that it was close and it was, she played well enough to win it. And the only thing that stopped her was her opponent having a good day. Yeah. And that's something that you can't control. Like, she'll probably feel pretty good about that. She generally seems quite positive about it. It's a little bit like, the well-known story of like Roger Federer taking solace from the 2008 Nadal loss at Wimbledon. Of he played in one of the best match of his life, still lost, but it wasn't his fault. So I would imagine she's taking kind of a similar stance on it. And like you say, Madrid, not a place that she has much of a history with. It's not like if she lost in Rome or Roland Garros. So Rome.
The alarm bells will be going up if this happened in Rome. I say alarm bells, like it'd be a small bell if you still get to the final and losing 3 sets, but it'd be a small bell or maybe like an opening of a door at that point of people going, maybe it isn't going to be Swiatek versus the field this time around when it comes to RG. No, and it's a good thing it's not. I think. I mean, in many ways. In many ways, you could say, as when Nadal was dominating on the men's side, was there always Nadal versus the field, or did we ever give anyone else a chance? But we're not at Nadal level of dominance yet from Swiatek, or if you want to take more of a women's centric side, like an Evet or Graf level.
where they seem to have a bit of a stranglehold on it. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how she takes it. I think she's going to be positive. I still think she's the favourite for Rome. But we'll see how it goes. I think she's got a little bit of a tough draw. I think she potentially has to get through Krejcikova in the semis, which would be a tough fight, I think, if Krejcikova's on. And given the fight they had in Rome in 21, that was an entertaining match.
So fingers crossed for an entertaining semi-final.
Indeed. I think John is going to be doing some predictions for Rome at some point this week. But I might share what I think is going to happen today. But before we move on to Rome for definite, obviously for those who were watching, like I did a week one show with Vanch where we covered all the stories that happened in the first 3 rounds. Are there any stories from kind of round 4 onwards that doesn't involve Swiatek or Sabalenka necessarily, unless they were the opponent of someone?
I would say that from round 4. So I luckily just got up on my iPad the draw thing from Vince, so I was able to remind myself. I would say the first thing that really pleased me was Badosa's performance over this tournament. We know that Badosa has, since the October Indian Wells triumph in 2021, hasn't really found any form whatsoever. She's been very. It's almost been like a car starting, but having a stuttering engine. It's almost started and it stopped. It's almost started and it stopped. And when it came to this tournament this time last year, it went out very early rounds, but this time around was really able to show a really strong game, able to beat Coco Gauff, who was not too shabby on the clay, and a range of other really good opponents, and only really coming up against a good form Sakkari, or at least a Sakkari that, at least in the early rounds, actually plays like Aryna Sakkari and not Aryna Sakkari of like a semi-final or final fame. So I would certainly say I'm pleased to see that Badosa was able to use the fact that it was a home tournament, home crowd, to be able to have a good showing, get to the 4th round, and hopefully she'll be able to build some confidence of this going into both Rome and Roland Garros and potentially the grass season.
Yeah,
and then of course the other big story was Andreeva, the young 16-year-old Murray lover.
Yes, who I definitely, Vanch and I raved about during our show last week. And I think so is she in qualifying for Rome?
Possibly.
I haven't looked at Rome qualifying.
It's so big, the draw sheets now, because of the now expanded format. You don't know where everyone is half the time.
Yeah, I'll just quick type into a social media engine. No, it doesn't look like she's in Rome. But then she is restricted by how many tournaments she can play.
Yeah, her sister is in qualifying, or was in qualifying. Her 18-year-old sister. Unfortunately, her 18-year-old sister lost 6-2, 6-1 to somebody called Elisa Giacomo.
Oh, Elisa Giacomo?
Giacomo? Is that how you I must be
I think so.
There we go. There's my pronunciations.
Yeah. Up-and-coming French star. Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah, but apart from that, I can't see anyone. I can see Jean of Roland Garros fame. Yes,
there's a few French players looking to build some.
Unfortunately, from a British perspective on the WTA side, Harriet Dart lost in 3 sets to Patricia Hon.
Oh well,
there we go.
I don't follow WTA for the Brits.
It's a depressing place to be. It really is the majority of the time. Well, barring potentially Burridge's performances of the way, but that's another matter.
Yeah, Burridge has been doing really well.
She looks like she's on course to become British #1 pretty soon, given that Raducanu is going to be out for a few months.
Yeah, and hopefully top 100, which would be great for her.
Top 100, a few points off. Hopefully direct entry into Wimbledon for.
I hadn't realised how young she was. I've just realised she's 21. I thought she was a bit older, but.
Burridge, she's had a few injury problems over the there's a classic line with a British tennis young British tennis player and injury problems. They come hand in hand. But yeah, she's had a lot of injury problems over the young part of her career, but seems to really be sort of firing through at the moment, of at least getting some consistent wins in challenger type events, WTA 60s, 80s, 100s, and. I really hope she's got a good game and the potential of really going quite far in it.
Yeah,
I've got an eye on a few other British youngsters in terms of from the women's side. It looks really promising, and you could be looking, say, for sort of 5 years' time where they could end up being. But so at the moment, I'm like, it's terrible at the moment, but it is going to get better. So I've just got to ride it out and just enjoy like Draper and whatnot in the men's side for any sort of British success.
Just to wrap up on Madrid stories, I think the two you've highlighted. I think quick rundown for me for the ones that you haven't mentioned, because Andreeva was definitely one of the stories of the tournament, other than the final. Badosa, great. Sakkari, we've talked about a little bit. She more of the same from Sakkari, I would think, to be honest. Not much new from her side, and sort of like gets to a semi-final, blown away by Sabalenka. The performances of a couple of Russian players, Alexandrova against Swiatek, redlining, gave us some good entertainment. And Kudermetova beating Pegula, which was a little bit of a surprise result, because I thought Pegula would provide that would be at a level where she would be in the semi-finals from that section. But Kudermetova kind of surprising us a little bit there.
That's a bit of a surprise. It was I'm just looking at the score now. It was quite a bit of a surprising one, because Pegula's famed for being able to at least reach her seeding.
Yeah. So we'll see how Pegula kind of handles that situation. But I still kind of regard her as kind of like the fifth person after the kind of four that have kind of risen to the top in 2023, being Sabalenka, Swiatek, Rybakina, and Krejcikova. And then the only other thing I just wanted to say was Mayar Sherif, I thought was a story that was worth highlighting. Quarterfinals of a Masters or of a 1000 event, furthest Egyptian woman's ever gone. She's best result of her career, up there with that 250 title she won last year, beating Sakkari in the final. Forget where it was. Palmer, thank you.
I remember it because it was a tournament I looked at and go, Sakkari should be balking it, and every single round she was getting dragged into 3-set thrillers. And it was like no surprise that in the final she got dragged into a 3-set thriller and was on the wrong side of a 3-set thriller. Yeah,
but Sherif, very strong player, because she got a couple of good wins this tournament. So she did really well earlier on this year as well. If I remember it, it's a tournament. I've forgotten which one it is, but she went deep there as well. She's certainly showing a good level of consistency. You're breaking into the world's top 40, current single ranking of 43. So it's good to see, and also a bit of a late bloomer being 27. And it's nice for North Africa to have two players at the sort of the top of the game, along with Ons Jabeur from Tunisia. Who I gather is playing Rome. I haven't seen any news saying she's pulled out, but that's good news.
Very good news.
Yeah. I think she's another name. If she's fit and healthy and she's recovered from this injury that she sustained in Stuttgart, which she said was a tear, then she's someone we need to keep an eye on the rest of the for the rest of the clay season.
Agreed. She's, Ons is one of the best sort of natural court surface players there is out there. And it'd be good to see her back in the fold.
All right, let's look at Rome. We talked a little bit about Rome from the perspective of Swiatek and Sabalenka. I'm definitely expecting them to go deep. Sabalenka's draw looks a little soft for her, actually. I think she should easily make the semis. Similar for Swiatek. I don't see anyone who can really challenge her. Some people are worried about her meeting Rybakina in the quarters. I think Swiatek, I think the surface neutralizes Rybakina's advantages over Swiatek, and Rybakina's not in a great, kind of lost a little bit of form at the minute. So I would back Swiatek to get to the semis. It's that Krejcikova clash potentially in the semis that interests me. And then my other semi-final is Sabalenka playing someone who I think is a Rome specialist, which is Karolina Pliskova. I would back her to get through her section as well.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, Pliskova, it's putting in results, but not really, it's lighting up the circuit at the moment. But no, I agree. Pliskova should do quite well here. Should be able to get, certainly farther into this draw.
Yeah. So I think it should be exciting anyway to see what happens. Obviously, we've still got qualifying going on, but is there anywhere that any kind of first round matches that you've spotted that you like? Keep an eye on that one. That could be entertaining.
Sabina being back, of course, and she's played a few tournaments. It's always good to see her back. Sansanovic versus Leylah Fernandez. Sansanovic is always a tricky customer. As I say, as a British tennis fan, watching her beat Raducanu on 2 occasions quite easily. She used to be a tricky one, and Fernandez still trying to pick up there. We've got, of course, Alicia Parks versus Annette Kontaveit. Annette's sort of like fall from grace almost, but Alicia's showed some good form in the indoor hard courts in February, but nothing really much since then, but still can be a quite dangerous player. Of course, the danger woman that is Kai Kanepi, see what she can do against Vondrousova. And just going down any further to see if there's anything. Nothing else sort of is standing out to me at the moment. Is anything standing out to you, Nick?
Yeah, I think you've listed all the other ones. Entertaining one, I think, could be Linda Noskova against Shelby Rogers. Big hitting. I think the Czech. This will be a good test for the Czech teenager because that might be a winnable match. Final section, you've got Sloane Stephens and Nadia Podoroska, French Open former 2018 French Open finalist against 2020 semi-finalist. Stephens actually in good form. She went I think she either won or got to the final of a ITF event or 125K event last week. So she seems to have got a little bit of mojo back after being on a losing streak. Sophia Kenin playing Christina Buxer. Kenin obviously trying to get her form back as a major champion, playing Buxer, who's very much in form right now, climbing up the rankings. And then the only other thing I've spotted that is like as an interesting potential matchup in the first round is the battle of the 2021 Roland Garros runner-up against the 2012 Roland Garros runner-up, Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova against Sara Irani in round one, when it's to play Swiatek.
Well, at least I have fun on that one match. is the answer to that one? Yeah, that'll be an interesting little match to sort of take a look. Wow, it's Irani. I've not had that name in years. So it's good to see her, in the main draw, one of these big tournaments. She's
currently playing qualifiers mostly. She's kind of just outside the top 100.
Yeah. I must admit, I've not heard much of Irani for a while.
No, not since she was questioning Kristina Mladenovic at the 20. Was it Mladenovic? No, someone getting wheeled off in a wheel. No, it was Kiki Bertens getting wheeled off in a wheelchair at the French Open. And Irani was still insisting that she wasn't injured. I mean, Bertens did win the match, but
that's a classic thing from like secondary school, where you rock up with a broken leg, but the PE teacher says, "Have you got a note?" And he goes, "No, I haven't got a note." Then you're playing, and you're in the kit, and you get on the court, mate.
Yeah. So yeah, but that. Yeah, those were kind of my first round matches. And obviously those are my kind of semi-final picks. I don't know if have you done a bracket yet for Rome, James?
Not yet. I don't know. Maybe because I'm a bit OCD about it. I like it when you do all the qualifying and then the qualifiers go into the brackets and then you've got the full list, so then you can go from there. So what's my? Is that maybe, like I said, because it's my OCD? I hate those tournaments where hate's probably a strong word, but I'll use it anyway. I hate those tournaments in which you have the qualifiers playing their second qualifying match on the same day as the first round to play it. So that means you have to do your draws based off blank spaces. And I'm like, well, one of those qualifiers could do really well and get quite far, and I may fancy one of those two qualifiers to get quite well and do far. But yeah, I'm waiting basically until Tuesday night, Wednesday morning to then do both my WTA and ATP brackets.
Yeah, I do mine just without qualifiers in it, which I agree is better to try and do them with. But what I keep finding is that sometimes they'll start main draws before the qualifying draw is finished, and then I can't do anything. So I kind of go, I'll just risk it and hope for the best. And it sometimes works. Hasn't worked for me so far in the clay season, but I know that you are one of the regular TNNS.
I did really well in the WTA one last week. I came second, which I was quite pleased about.
In Madrid?
For Madrid, yeah. I think
WTA, yes, because Hanya beat you.
Yeah, Hanya beat me. Like, Hanya's brilliant at it, so I don't mind losing to Hanya. That's fine. But I was like, hang on a minute, I predicted the final, and who was going to win the final correctly? Get in.
Well done.
The ATP one was terrible. I think is everyone didn't. But whoever, if anyone put Jan Lennard-Struff to get to the final, deserves the biggest bottle of champagne or whatever imaginable, because that is some cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they'll be discussing that in detail on the ATP Weekly show. Mario and Damien are going live in about 4 hours, so stay tuned to the channel to keep an eye on it. Also, stay tuned to the channel for any updates we have from Rome, any commentaries we do. Assuming the weather isn't prohibitive, I think our last point on Rome is I've seen a few things flying around that the weather forecast does not look great, and I don't think Rome has a roof. This could be utter chaos in Italy.
This is the joy of them having an extra 3 days, it seems. I mean, it's going to be, none of the courts in Rome have any roofs. They're quite old fashioned, like Roman Colosseums. All of the stadiums.
All right.
There's old Patrick.
Yeah. Well, this if it's slower conditions, Iga Swiatek is definitely going to be doing a rain dance.
Oh, she certainly will be doing.
Yeah.
So I have the comments fly through that.
There's a lot of comments coming up.
Yeah.
John is saying he's returning to the commentary booth, which will be great because he's been much missed. So I'm looking forward to seeing what will happen there. I am hoping to be in the booth at some point for Rome. And so just keep an eye on the channel and see what kind of comes from that. This week, John's going to be doing his predictions. He's obviously heard mine, so he's probably just going to copy everything I say. I'm going to be.
Mine's pretty easy. I'm gonna be boring. I'm gonna say it's Swiatek. I say it's going to be quite straightforward route to the final.
Okay.
I am probably there we go. The most boring prediction you'll get probably all week.
I'm predicting Swiatek to win as well, to be honest. I think I'm going to say this. I'm going to be controversial. I actually went for a Swiatek Pliskova final.
What for your prediction?
Yeah. I think Swiatek will beat Pliskova in the final.
Okay. There you go. You're really trying to set yourself apart.
Yeah, well, if you don't set yourself apart, then everyone just thinks you sound exactly like everyone else.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely convinced by that, to be honest. I think Swiatek Sabalenka is also probably just as likely. But yes, the infamous double bagel from 2021, which was a spectacle in its own special way.
Yeah. I mean, it's when you get them, you get them. I hate it, and I more whenever you see a double bagel, I know this is the general point in whatever match. If it's in the final, especially, I really feel sorry for the paying fans who have paid a lot of money for a final ticket and for it to last 15 minutes and to have a trophy lift. I'm like, okay, like this person showed that they're miles better than the other opponent, but you got a fan that's paid £200 per ticket to sit right in the gods, and yeah.
I'm going to say this now. I would prefer to see a double bagel than a triple bagel, because at least the double bagel's over quicker, whereas the triple bagel is like, just can we get this over with?
Yeah, at that point, it's like, stop it. He's already dead, meme.
Okay.
Everyone gets that.
Yes, actually saw a tweet. Apparently, if Swiatek wins 3 in a row, she'll be the first player since Conchita Martinez in the 90s to won 3 in a row, because she won 4 in a row, 93, 94, 95, 96.
Wow, that's a really good stat.
It's amazing she never won the Roland Garros. Martinez, like she was always in the mix and never. I think she got to 1 final.
But another player that I know everyone will ask the question why Murray never won the Australian Open, given he got to like 5 or 6 finals.
That's it. Yeah. It's one of those. Yeah. Martinez only got to 1 Roland Garros final. She lost. I think it was. No, that was what year was it? She got to the Roland Garros final. I think she got beaten by Pierce in the 2000 final. Yeah, but obviously she won Wimbledon, so she is a deserved Grand Slam champion. But I mean, I don't know why we're talking about this. I think this is all for us. We never watched it live, Apologies to
Yeah,
those who.
I mean, I
did.
wasn't even born then. I mean, those from 93 to 96. I was born actually at the back end of 96. So, yeah.
Yeah, 2000 French Open final, lost to Mary Pierce.
There we go.
Which, annoying for Martinez because that was a big opportunity, but on the other hand, French major champion. How much actually? This is something I've been thinking about. The hype around Caroline Garcia going into Roland Garros is going to be huge. She's going to be top 4 seed probably, despite her lack of form. I don't think the general French media is going to care about that.
I mean, I was quite fortunate because I say quite fortunate. It turns out getting to Lyon in February is fairly cheap, and the tickets to that tournament were fairly cheap as well. So, so I went to Lyon in early February for the indoor tournament that took place there. That Garcia was the top seed at, and the French crowd absolutely love her. Cheering every shot, trying to jiggle over the opponent if they got to a second serve. It was really brilliant to see how much that. And I know Lyon is the town that Garcia is from, or the city that Garcia is from. But yeah, the French crowd absolutely love Caroline, and as you know, Nick, Caroline's is one of my favorite WTA players. So I really hope that she does really well at this tournament.
There's a lot to love from Garcia, and yeah, I hope she does well in Roland Garros and pleased with the fans, and hope she does well in Rome because that will give her a lot of confidence going into Roland Garros. Make things interesting.
Certainly would.
So right, let's wrap this up. Thanks for coming.
I'm beginning to be offending Ghost a lot. He's now saying that I said Leon as Leon.
Leon.
Okay.
What? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Ghost.
Oh well. We're British, and as I think he commented earlier, we tend to struggle with anything that's not certain pronunciations. But yeah, thanks for coming on, James. I hope you had a good time.
Brilliant time.
And you'll see another video from me in a day or two where I will update my pre-Roland Garros WTA rankings based on the Madrid results. Don't think there's going to be too many surprises in them. And yeah, just keep an eye on the channel, like, subscribe for any other updates. Thank you very much, James. Thank you very much, everyone watching. Speak soon.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.